Hello, welcome to another podcast of Valeo Health. Today I have Gareth Bloomfield with me, which I'm very, very excited about. Gareth is a trained clinical psychologist and he's focused on human performance optimization. Gareth, welcome.
Thank you.
I've come to Abu Dhabi for you, which has been very nice also.
Thank you for coming down.
It's a very nice studio, so I'm happy to try other places. Gareth, so we met during a corporate program and I really enjoyed our conversation. And for us, I feel like when it comes to longevity or human health or physical health, we're always focused on physical, how much fitness do you do? How much, what are your nutrition? What's your supplement? But actually your mindset and your mindfulness, your consciousness and your brain health as important or even more important, what would you say?
Well, I'd say that was your command and control system.
Yeah.
So I'd say your brain and your other major organs are, are they equally as important as each other? I would say your brain's probably your most important organ in terms of, but then you can't live without the other bits either, can you? So
true.
And I think we focus on physical because it's relatively easy, and the brain's been such a difficult area to understand. You take a brain out of a human being and look at it and you go, well, what does this do? It's really difficult to see internal structures of a brain when you've physically got one in your hands.
Do you think it's still, brain and how the brain functions is a mystery, or let's say from 10 years or from 20 years to now, how has the research advanced?
The principal research from brain function comes from brain injury. So, and that's
so
pretty
when
much,
something breaks, you're like, oh, that's what it works for.
So pretty much from
from
the year that sort of, or the years that brain research really started, there's a famous story of a railroad worker who was building a railroad in the United States with pipes filled with dynamite, and a pipe that he was banging into some rock exploded, and it went through the top of it went through his eye socket and out the top of his head, and then took away a core of his prefrontal cortex. And that was well documented about what then happened to that patient.
What functions?
As a result. Yeah, so there's all sorts of things then you get to know about the prefrontal cortex, and lots of people had prefrontal cortex or have had prefrontal cortex damage. It's the bit behind your forehead. They even used to do prefrontal lobotomies. Have you heard of that? A lobotomy, which was, it was mainly to take away anxiety, and from the research of the people that they did it to, it was mainly women going through the menopause, which is just, disgraceful in terms of.
So it was like a medical.
Well, it wasn't really
intervention.
I would say it wasn't really promoted by medics at the time. Really, it was promoted as a solution, but it was basically putting into the prefrontal cortex through the nasal eye socket an ice pick and just mushing the prefrontal cortex about. It sounds horrible, and it is horrible.
And did it work?
Well, the prefrontal cortex, one of the things it does is it allows us to think ahead. So you're using it now because you're already finishing and I don't have to say very, and you'll just fill in the.
That's true.
So you're using it to think ahead all the time, and that then it's a part of your emotional regulation as well. It would be inappropriate for me to do certain things sat here, and I could imagine doing something inappropriate, but when I imagine it, I go, oh, I'm not going to do that.
And is that something that animals don't have, for example?
So animals generally most mammals have generally the same sort of brain structure as we do, but they might have different sized bits So our prefrontal cortex in relative to the rest of our brain is massive.
Okay.
I mean, it's big.
Yeah.
Whereas our closest living relatives in terms of primates might have a much smaller one. Well, they do have a much smaller one.
If we look at the brain,
an elephant's one is huge. But,
really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got a.
Oh, they are huge.
But I mean that and dolphins as well. Elephants and dolphins, seem to have this perhaps ability to think ahead that because we can't communicate with them not very well anyway. It's difficult to know what they're thinking, but
very interesting.
You can imagine that those actually, as intelligent beings, they're more intelligent than anything else apart from us.
So if we look at Brain 101, let's say if we're gonna look at the brain and cut it into, let's say, the function of each one in an easy way.
Yeah.
So the frontal.
Well, the easiest way to start is at the top of the brainstem.
Yeah.
Because that's the first bit to develop. So,
okay.
Most people have seen an embryo or a picture of an embryo in biology or whatever it was we did at school.
Yeah.
So we know there's a spinal cord, and at one end of that is the brainstem, and that brainstem, it's evolving. Then obviously through a mum's pregnancy, this brain development is going on. The brain structures are evolving around this brainstem. So the brainstem you could argue is the most primitive part of the brain because it's what every animal has pretty much, or every animal that walks or crawls the earth, I would guess, has that sort of structure. I'm not really an expert in sea life and squids and things like that.
No, it's okay. We're not going to get into that.
But I think, again, intelligent beings, but I'm not sure about their brains, how they're structured. Then there's sort of a hippocampus that goes around the brainstem. We know when that gets damaged, there's a problem with memory and retention and what you call executive function, your ability to actually sort of perhaps remember what's just been said or
short-term memory.
Yeah, short-term memory. There's a left temporal lobe that's stuck on the left-hand side. Things like speech, verbal communication, those sorts of things. Although we can say, if there's a bleed on the brain or a brain injury, there's various things that different parts of the brain do. A lot of the brain lights up when we do, particularly even when I'm talking now or using my hands. There's a huge amount of brain area that's lighting up and interacting with each other. So it's very difficult to say, this bit does that on its own, because it doesn't do it on its own. Prefrontal cortex, being able to think ahead, emotional regulation, then tops of the brain in terms of sensory elements of the brain. We know that when these get injured, people lose their sense of smell,
so like
taste,
smell,
and things.
touching, all this comes from the brain.
Things. Occipital lobes at the back. So your right eye goes to your left back of the brain, your left eye goes to the right back of the brain, and they cross over in the middle. The fibers cross over in the middle. So what's interesting is that only about 90% of your fibers go to your occipital lobes, probably about 10% terminate in the brainstem. So there's things that you see, but you don't really see them with the bit that sees the occipital lobes.
So it's
you see them immediately in nanoseconds and react to them before you've even seen it.
Oh wow! And we have that ability.
Yeah, because those fibers terminate in the brainstem, and right where our acute stress responses are. So if you walk past something that looks like a snake, you jump out of the way and you move to the left or the right, and then you go, oh, well, I thought that was now you're thinking that's that, but you jumped in a nanosecond.
And that's where we think of the whole fight and flight.
Yeah. So think.
And then you said there's a third F that I'm very interested in.
Before we started talking, I did say third F. Freeze. So the only reason why we are still alive as a species on this earth is because we freeze. And
Really?
yeah.
Wow. You would never think that is a strength.
You would argue that most animals that are still alive have that initial response, which is freeze. If you freeze, the predator doesn't see you, or is unlikely to see you, because most predators don't have the sort of eyesight that we have, or perhaps do have very similar eyesight to us. And when something's very still, we don't necessarily focus on it or take notice of it. But when it moves, we see it. We're looking at, because it's.
I mean, that's what they say. When a bear is coming or a lion, you shouldn't run. You should actually just freeze. Not that I tried it. Well, that's what they say.
You'll freeze anyway. Okay. You won't have a choice. Yeah. You're programmed to do it, and that's why we're so.
So that's where the part of the brain where it says like freeze, fight, flight.
So in the UK, obviously there's animals that you see on the road at night, which is perhaps what we don't see here so much in the Gulf states, but. You might see a fox or something that runs across the road. But if a fox is running across the road and you came around the corner with your lights on, it would freeze. It's a mammal. It will freeze, and then decide, not consciously, its brainstem will direct it to fight or flight. It's not going to fight a car, so it's gonna run.
Run, yeah.
But most animals will freeze in the headlights. Because that's a predator coming towards it.
Yeah.
Now they're not trained to. We're not. We haven't evolved to deal with vehicles coming at us at 100 kilometers an hour. We've evolved to deal with different things. So
I mean, one of the interesting parts, you've always worked with humans. Let's say, be it in the military or that need to perform at their top, athletes.
Yeah.
And. This is not your everyday person, right? The even their obstacles that they get or the goals that they have, when we're talking about athletes, is different than the standard, goals of a person. Would you agree to that, or is it really the foundation is the same for everybody?
I think the foundation is very much the same. I don't look at. There's not many people that I've met who you would, probably categorize as fully functioning human beings who don't have a capability to outperform in some area. And there's a whole load of things that impact upon this. So, for example, one of those things might be what you get told you're good at school. So as you're going through your schooling, and you're getting feedback. You might get feedback from a maths teacher that maths not your thing. And if you begin to believe that maths not your thing, then probably you'll give up on it and think, well, I'll do something else. So that one
comment can make us believe and impact our performance.
Then that belief does have a neurological effect, it seems. So if I strongly believe that I'm not a maths person, but I am a practical person, I can make things, then what the brain will do is it will prune out brain cells, particularly in teenage years. It will prune out brain cells that it doesn't think it needs. And if it doesn't think it's going to need the brain cells that help it calculate things and do trigonometry and all those sorts of things.
Wow, this is mind-blowing for me.
It will reinforce, myelinate. So there's a protein jacket on your neurons. So you've got axons and dendrites on the end of each neuron. And there's this protein jacket in between. And this protein jacket is a myelin sheath. And that's called myelination. So this protein jacket gets put on during, it gets put on whilst we're in mum's womb. But then as we come out and we begin to our brain begins to develop even more from the nutrients that we're getting, that myelination is happening all the time. So for example, at 3 months old, you'll see a baby move from sort of staring blankly into space to then beginning to notice things and going, ooh, and then realize that there's, and that's the myelination of things within the occipital lobe changing. So this myelination is happening all the time, but the pruning's happening as well, and particularly teenage years, the pruning out of things that we don't think we need.
Oh, wow. So that's like pruning, just to explain maybe in simple words. Let's say if a teenager believes through comments he or she got from parents, teachers, friends even, saying, oh, you're not a good dancer. I'm just putting it out there.
I'm not
or like, you're not very smart.
Yeah.
Is it, or it's very specific? And then the brain literally prunes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're oversimplifying it, but the danger is that the more somebody gets feedback and generates this firm belief that this is what they are, they'll do that thing of what they are. So,
and it will physically.
A child gets some feedback that says, "Yeah, you're really good at the guitar," and they play more and more of the guitar, and they love it, and of course, then the brain's going to reinforce those things that help them play the guitar. It's going to reinforce those neurons and make that, a thing that they do. Languages,
Wow.
it will make them a thing. It will make it a thing that they do, and so people have particular strengths that are developed really early as a result of the reinforcement of neurons.
This is crazy.
And one of those aspects is about the belief that people have about what they are.
And
because that then generates what I do.
Is there an age where it stops adjusting or no?
Well, myelination, that process of reinforcement goes on until the brain really is fully developed. And you'd think that the law has kept up with neurological development, and you think, well, the brain is fully developed when somebody becomes an adult at maybe 18 in most countries, yeah? No.
No? Oh, God.
25, 26, 27, that's when your brain's fully developed. That's when neurologically you're an adult.
Oh, wow.
That's when your brain has got most of the protein connections and reinforcement that it needs. So the law's a bit behind because you find some of the people who do the most stupid things. You'd think, sort of, and then perhaps make criminal mistakes because of their naivety and the fact that their brain isn't fully developed yet. They're not thinking ahead in the way that you and I are thinking ahead. If I do this, that would be a bad thing. Whereas a 17-year-old doesn't necessarily have the full ability to go, well, if I do this, this would result in X, Y. They just do it. So, because that myelination hasn't yet completed, they're 17 years old. They've got another 10 years
of development,
of brain development to really go on. So they're making foolish mistakes and then getting in trouble with the law or with their parents or with the school or whatever it might be because they're doing foolish things because their brain isn't developed.
And then if, let's say, as an adult looking at the teenager and you can't comprehend why are they doing it, because actually...
Yeah, why are you behaving like that?
Yeah.
Well, give them a chance, actually, because their brain isn't fully developed. And in many societies now, and in the culture that we live in with regards to mobile tech, etc., the chances of them getting the full sleep that they really need to actually make sure that brain is functioning and developing well...
So that was going to be my...
It's pretty low, really. It's pretty... I mean, I'd say most teenagers are sleep deprived and, just think about, a 15-year-old and what time they've got to get up for school.
Yeah.
And then realistically think about what time they went to bed.
Yeah.
And actually how much sleep have they had. Because they're going to need about 12 hours sleep. And most 15-year-old has 12 hours sleep.
100%.
So
their brain is developing till 26, 27.
Yeah.
From what I hear, sleep is one of the main...
Yeah, I think so...
What are the others? Let's say if a parent wants to make sure that...
Yeah. I think that... Think of it like like the bricks of a wall. So this was my research on resilience. But then when I started to research psychological resilience, I started to realize that actually these are the same building blocks. The blocks of this wall are the same building blocks as performance, psychological health, mental health. So psychological resilience, performance, mental health, they're pretty much all the same building blocks. And then people talk about brain health and you go, well, these are the same things too.
Very interesting.
The first foundation stone at the bottom of the wall, and if you take it away, the wall falls down, is sleep. Oh. That's the major one. Every animal on this earth sleeps. It's a neurological reset. It's a washout of debris. It's a chance for the brain to develop, grow, and repair itself. So sleep is major, important factor. And then there's socialization. We're a social species. And so if we don't socialize, actually our brain shrinks. So one of the things that I learned throughout my training is when I did get to see human brains and actually hold human brains, that's a very privileged thing. Somebody dedicates their brain to human science. You're really privileged to hold that. But I held one, and the instructor said to a group of us as I was holding it, I remember, said, "What do you think is the issue with this brain?" And I said, "Well, it hasn't developed properly. It's very young, or there's been some congenital issues, which mean it hasn't developed." No, it was fully adult. It was much larger than this. It was, it would have been fine. It's happened in later years. So what's happened is people are going, well, is it dementia? Is it this? Is it that? It was isolation. This person had been in social isolation for over 12 years, and their brain had shrunk, and the ventricles, which are all the crinkly bits in a brain, had opened right up, and you could almost put your fingers right inside them because it was just the brain had shrunk. And so
there is a lot of research on loneliness coming out now.
And it's so that you take away socialization and you take away sleep, and you've got two foundation stones that make the wall fall down. Now, I suppose if you were watching a film like a James Bond film or something, or a film about a war somewhere, would they torture people by sleep depriving them, by putting them in social isolation? Yeah,
exactly.
Human beings have done that to other human beings. They've made sure they haven't got sleep, and they've made sure they've been isolated.
And that is the worst torture.
Yeah, you're basically taken away the two foundation stones of resilience, performance, mental health. And the other stones that then go on the top of that is obviously physical health, your physical exercise, your ability to move and to jump and to have all the muscles working and your internal organs healthy, and not too much visceral fat, or you're not obese, your BMI is not too big, all that sort of thing. Nutrition that goes along with that.
Nutrition, your diet. There's a lot of research also on nutrition and brain health. Do you think it's just you just need to eat non-processed, healthy greens?
You could argue that everything we need is within our sort of normal dietary choices within a supermarket, or but then there's deficiencies that we have because we don't eat enough fatty acids, for example. So omega-3 fatty acids, that they appear, there's some evidence to say that they appear really important. So as an extra nutrition for people to get extra omega-3s, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Vitamin D, most people, even in an area like this where we've got sunny days, most days, 99% of the time we've got a sunny day, but vitamin D is produced by being exposed to sunlight, but sometimes, well,
We're
most
deficient,
of the time, we're deficient in vitamin
we see
D.
it in Valeo, definitely.
Now, vitamin D has a huge amount of processing power within the brain, and so does magnesium as well. So across the whole body. So,
Any like particular type of magnesium or?
well, that's a good question. I'm not an expert on
But magnesium per se.
yeah.
Okay. So omega, vitamin D, magnesium.
Those are the three that you've got to make sure that you've got. And of course, there's the electrolytes that you would get within a balanced, healthy diet. Now, I'm one of those persons. I will drop an electrolyte tablet into some water when
that also
working
impacts
out,
maybe brain health.
Well, yeah, your brain can't operate without those things.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
So yeah, nutrition is really important. And the other two stones that are on that top row, I guess, you've got physical health, nutrition,
sleep.
Sleep at the bottom.
Yeah.
Think about those foundation stones of sleep and social, and then these ones that are row along the top. Physical health, nutrition, and then you've got your ability to set goals and use your brain actively, but also not only your ability to set goals and use your brain actively, but to ensure that you challenge yourself. I suppose that's related to goal setting.
So doing the Sudoku, is that something that?
Yeah, I mean, there used to be in neuroscience there used to be this saying, "Use it or lose it," but actually, there's less evidence for that now.
Because I want to talk about aging a bit,
Yeah.
Aging.
Yeah, I mean, one of the aspects of losing memory, for example, within aging, losing your memory as you get older is not inevitable. But one of the factors might be that when people retire from work, for example, they begin to use their brain less and less, and as they interact with their family, less and less, perhaps in some cultures, and the isolation becomes greater as more of their friends pass away, etc. Then you can imagine that actually somebody's not using their brain socially, not interacting with others. Well, don't
replace it with something else.
Yeah. What are you replacing it with? What are you what are you doing? What's your purpose in life? And
I was
what are
gonna
you
say
giving
the
to
sense
others?
of purpose. I'm very conscious of time. I have so many questions still.
That's
I
all
think
right,
we
that's no
need another podcast. But you said you did a research on resilience, human resilience. And what would you say was one of the top things that makes humans resilient? Is it that sense of purpose I was thinking, or is it something really sense of survival?
So let's clarify definition of resilience first. That's a good thing. So resilience, the word itself comes from modern Latin resilio, which means to bounce back. It's your ability to bounce back. So we all go through peaks and troughs of hard times and good times. Or hopefully we do as human beings. You get some acute stress in your life, or even a period of chronic stress. How quickly can you bounce back from that and get yourself back into equilibrium and a state where you can think rationally, make good decisions, use your physical ability, all those sorts of things. Now, this affects my world, which is within the military and working with high performers within the military, and also my work within the Premier League with football, is that we look at people who are in very challenging environments and we think, how can we make sure that you get the best out of yourself, which then gives us the best, gets us the best player or the best special forces soldier or whatever.
Yes.
And all those bricks that I've been talking about, all those foundation stones, and the other stones, they're all highly relevant in terms of making sure that you can bounce back. If I haven't enough sleep,
Yeah.
I'm not going to bounce back.
Yeah, 100%.
If I'm socially isolated, even within a group. So one of the things within football, for example, would be if a player feels that, there was one example I saw when a player passed a ball and the captain of the team rolled their eyes and shook their head because the ball wasn't passed in, directly to the other player's feet. It was passed a little bit to the left or to the right, whatever. And the captain of the team rolled their eyes, shook their head. That's contempt. That's a facial expression of contempt. Now, the captain shows that contempt towards the young player, and then basically tells everybody else within that one split second of that facial expression that it's all right to show contempt towards this individual. So it doesn't take very long for this individual to feel isolated within the team. They're part of a team, but they
because
don't
with
feel
the
like
leader, in a way, the captain.
They don't feel like they're socially supported within the team. So therefore, they feel isolated within the team. That might actually affect their sleep because they might actually feel that they're not in the right place. And if they're not in the right place, they're not achieving their goals, and that might start messing with their thoughts.
Wow.
They might start eating differently because they're stressed and start putting on weight, and then that's affecting their sleep as well, and it's affecting their physical. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of
and it's what's so funny
down.
is it has nothing to do with this person actually not being physically a good football player.
They're already in a Premier League football team or in an academy where they're getting ready to do that. Yeah. So they're already a high performing athlete.
Wow.
But we're so fragile in terms of what we think and feel.
But even if you're in Premier League or a top performer, 100%, I think the way you get feedback or the way there is this sense of not feeling enough. I think maybe as a psychologist, you saw it a lot in people thinking they're not enough to succeed, to reach that goal.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's such a huge spectrum of that too. And leaders have a big impact upon that. So leaders within organizations, they have the same impact upon you as parents have when you're a child. Crazy. If you've got a toxic leader within an organization who's threatening people and saying, if you don't do this, this will happen. If you don't do this, this will happen. You can imagine a child growing up in that environment with a parent. If you don't do this, this will happen. And you can think, do I go this way or that way?
So you get actually the worst from your team member.
Yeah, you can make an environment very nervous for someone to be in. Stressful for someone to be in. So they're releasing cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline to try and make sure that the lion in the room doesn't get angry. The lion in the room could be mum or dad. It could be could be the leader. It could be the boss. And they're not there all the time. But when they come in the room, and you don't know when they're coming in the room, when they come in the room, you're already on edge because you're already thinking they might be in today or they might be in tomorrow or what happens if I don't get this piece of work done or that piece of work done. And that leadership can have a major effect on obviously how we're thinking.
Negative or positive also.
But yeah, of course. Yeah. So really good leaders, the best leaders in terms of human performance optimization have perspective, and they look at things from pretty much everybody else's perspective. And that feeds into their social intelligence, or some people would say emotional intelligence, but social intelligence, their ability to sort of think socially the impact that they're having, but also their ability then to strategically make a decision based on the perspective of others and themselves. They can see a full sort of 360 of what's going on. And
so empathy is important, actually.
Empathy is hugely important. And, I've stood behind senior officers and senior NCOs within the military, as a psychologist, I've stood behind them and heard them say to young officers, "You're not here to be liked." And my eyes immediately sort of go, and my mouth sort of goes, well, actually, that might not be true. That there's 3 concentric circles, which is liking, respect, and trust. Liking is linked to respect. Respect and liking are linked, and so is trust. So if you like me, you're more likely to trust me.
True.
If you like me, you're more likely to respect me.
True.
And this vice versa for me too.
You're more likely to be a team that produces and creates together.
If I don't like you as a leader, as somebody who's influencing my life, if I don't like the way you're influencing my life, I neither trust you or respect you as much as perhaps I should.
Very nice.
So
I love this.
So it's, those things are super important, because human beings are fragile human beings. You can make a human being very quickly feel like it's not even worth them being around. And that's actually, that's one of the journeys towards people taking their own life, is that they get into their head that actually
they're not required.
What's the point? Yeah. Nobody needs me in their life. And you can destroy somebody's confidence and competence really quickly when you're in an influential position, and get them depressed, and then get them into a position where they're thinking terrible thoughts.
I mean, I think then we should be aware of this responsibility that we have.
Oh yeah.
With this, definitely, be it parents, leaders, managers, even a big sister. I'm a big sister, so it's very important.
Yeah.
I do feel like, whatever I do, my sisters will look at it in a good or bad, and every word you use.
Judge us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whilst they're not responsible for your feelings, they don't make you feel something.
Yeah.
They have an influence upon you, and you have an influence upon them.
Yeah.
So I don't make anybody feel something, but what I do seriously influences how they feel.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I want to close it with the last question, which we had spoken about, male and female.
Yes.
Brain health. And, there's the popular book, Mars, men are from Venus. Men are from Mars, female are from Venus, somewhere. We're from different planets, basically.
Right. Yeah.
But scientifically, are we actually really different when it comes to brain?
So neuroscience has come on a long way since that book. That's the first thing to say.
Very good.
So structurally, really, there's very little difference between male and female brains. There's some evidence to say that left and right hemispheres have more connections within female brains.
Which means?
Well, which means that potentially then the ability to perhaps see things from different perspectives may be heightened, because the connections between left and right hemispheres are working more effectively, for example. So that might be one outcome of having more connections between left and right. But here's the thing. What I've learned about male and female neurology comes down to this, which is being male or female, don't think about it in terms of what your chromosomes say you are, what you're born with, in terms of what distinguishes you as male or female. Actually, even the feeling of being male or female generates itself at a different time. Your chromosomes are set right at the beginning, and your spinal cord is developing. And you're getting your functions as a human being put on very, very early. But in the third trimester of pregnancy, testosterone peaks within mum have an effect on whether you feel male or female. So someone who feels and perhaps behaves more feminine may not have had as much testosterone exposure to them.
Okay.
So you can have within a mum having male children, testosterone should peak in third trimester. But if it hasn't peaked, then there's a big possibility that that male child that comes out is more feminine than their male brothers.
Interesting.
Now, one of the things is that mums become more resistant to testosterone the more male children they have. So if mum's had 5 male children, you're going to have character differences between male number 1 and male number 5, because male number 5 hasn't been exposed to as much testosterone probably, and is probably more effeminate than masculine male number 1. So, and of course then there's testosterone peaks within mums who are having female children. What effect does that have? Well, that may be, we've met very masculine women and we've met very feminine women. We've met very feminine men and very masculine men. It's not about what your chromosomes deliver to you. It's about actually the sorts of hormones that you're exposed to, and then DNA, gene mutations, all sorts of different things that can come together and make you more feminine or more masculine.
And does it mean your brain is also different because of these hormones?
Not really structurally, apart from perhaps those connections between left and right hemisphere. Maybe the hormones are the things that promote the more connections between left and right. If you're thinking about masculinity and femininity, think actually that all human beings are different, no matter whether they're classed as male or female.
So we're unique.
Well, yeah, we're all unique in some way, and there's a whole, even identical twins, they're the most identical, obviously, but you still find differences. You still find differences in character and behaviours.
100%.
Yeah. So it's we're all unique for a whole myriad of different reasons. I would say that.
Which I think is very nice, because a lot of pressure comes from comparing yourself to others or how you should be doing. Actually, you need to live your own journey. Like, this is your unique journey to yourself.
Particularly with social media, children and adults are comparing themselves to this wonderful life that looks like it's on the other end of a social media platform. And I think one of the things that's beginning to come through within the culture is to say, actually, life's not all that wonderful. You get peaks and troughs, and you have to be able to be resilient enough to be able to deal with the hard times as well as the good times.
What's the psychological impact you would think for kids, or even, like, as you said, adults, because we've been in social media as much.
Yeah.
This whole high visibility to social media. I mean, I get surprised when I see how many hours I've spent on my phone.
Well, I mean, the addictive nature of mobile devices, just like any other addiction, comes from dopamine peaks. So the dopamine comes out when we anticipate that we'll get something that we want. So somebody would get addicted to gambling because they anticipate that they might win. Not that they do win. If they do win, it doesn't really matter. That doesn't really give them the spike that you'd think it would give them. It's the anticipation that they might. So my analogy is I like messages from my family, particularly my children. I think they're quite funny, some of the messages I get from my children. And so my anticipation is that if I open WhatsApp, there'll be a message or I turn on my mobile phone, there'll be a message from one of my kids. And it's the anticipation of that which causes the dopamine spike. It's not actually seeing the message. It's not actually opening WhatsApp. It's before I turn on my phone, I pick up my phone and just turn on my phone. That's the dopamine spike, just before I do it.
And that's the swiping, I guess.
It becomes
You
Yeah,
know?
well, so the anticipation of what's
Of
happening
the
next.
Yeah.
The next reel. So Instagram or reels or YouTube shorts, whatever it might be that people get lost in. It's the anticipation that the next one might be better. So anything that's addictive in that sense is the anticipation of. And at work, if you think about the good feelings at work, it's the anticipation that actually something might go really well.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a presentation this afternoon. I'm quite positive about it because the anticipation is that it might go really well. And so
How healthy is the whole anticipation of social media?
well, they want you to stay on it, don't they? So they want,
Yeah.
they want the advertising revenue. They want people to see adverts and to click on that and
And the way
so
you can
why wouldn't
protect
it?
yourself is just don't be honest. That's that.
Yeah, I mean, you can either block yourself off time and say, I will do this, and when my alarm goes off, I'm going to stop. But don't do it at bed. Most people,
that's the worst.
most
Before
people do
bed,
it at bedtime.
No.
Now, it's not necessarily the blue light that's coming from your screen. It's not the blue light that's the problem.
So
it seems
Huberman is not correct.
Well, okay, so he's just done a series of interviews with Matthew Walker, who is the sleep expert.
Yeah.
And Matthew Walker's clear is that blue light doesn't help, but the data that's coming out, the research that's coming out is saying, well, blue light doesn't really prohibit melatonin that much, and it's not affecting adenosine, which is another sleep hormone. So it's not necessarily the blue light; it's the stimulation that you're getting from your mobile phone.
Mind stimulation.
Yeah, your mind's busy.
So the orange glasses, no need?
Well, if you live in a house with a family and everyone else is really busy at late at night, and you want to be calm and less busy, then I would say orange glasses that you can get from Ace or some other shop that sells safety equipment or whatever. You can get a pair of orange glasses.
You don't need to pay an arm and a leg.
Very cheaply. If you're in an environment that is just full of light and you need to lower the UV light. Now, what I do is as soon as I get in and I'm an hour away from bed, I make sure all the lights are off and either candles are on or there's just side lights on. Very low, very low light. Yeah, an hour below.
Okay.
And so I don't really want to be looking at my phone because that's too stimulating and it's too bright.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
So there's a mixture of things there. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on glasses that cut out UV light. The evidence just isn't there.
Strong enough.
No.
My last question, even though I have so many questions, there is the connection between brain and heart health.
Sure.
How are they connected, and why is it? Why they affect or impact each other?
I think this comes out. If I was writing a book about general health and looking at the health that you require to have a good functioning brain and to avoid brain damage from stroke, etc., and the health that I need for my heart to avoid heart damage from a heart attack or part of the heart dying as a result of that heart attack, etc., they're exactly the same thing.
Wow.
So the brain and heart health, of course, they're closely linked. The issue is that cardiologists and neurologists, you don't see them talking together, but they'll give the same messages. There's a shared vascular system, so nutrients and oxygen get past the brain and the heart in the same way. The high blood pressure is a high risk factor for heart attacks, for making the wall of the heart thicker because the heart is having to cope with the high blood pressure. It's not good for your heart valves. It's certainly one of the major contributing factors to strokes.
Blood pressure.
Yeah, blood pressure. Yeah, number one. Then there's clots and blockages. Clots
Heart and brain.
Right. Yeah, for both. So high cholesterol doesn't help. You have to have stents fitted to open up the blood vessels to the heart, and the restriction of blood vessels to the brain has indication not just for strokes, but also for aspects of dementia as well. And then there's irregular heart rhythms. That's not good for the brain. It's not good for the heart. And chronic inflammation as well. So chronic inflammation, if it's not dealt with within your biological system, then that affects the heart and it affects the brain too. So those things you could argue are the reasons why people say, well, brain and heart health are pretty much the same thing, because
and chronic inflammation could be anything. This is
well, if you sit at a desk all day, you're burning quite a lot of calories just sat at a desk all day, because your brain,
that's good news,
consumes quite a lot of calories. Yeah, but one of the things you'll get is more chronic inflammation, because your body is dealing with things that it would otherwise deal with if you were fit and healthy walking around. One of the most fantastic bits of research that over the last 10 years has been about how many calories we burn and how much exercise you've got to do to actually lose weight. So you sat at a desk all day and you doing 14 kilometers hunting and gathering, which one of you burns more calories? Well, the intuitive answer is to say, well, the one of me that's doing 14 kilometers a day and hunting and gathering. No, you burn exactly the same amount of calories, both of you.
Really?
You've got to do over 14 kilometers a day to burn more calories than you would do sitting at a desk. So you've got to do a lot of exercise to burn more calories and therefore to lose weight. So really the best way to monitor your weight and levels of obesity is about your diet and what you put in your mouth and when you put it in your mouth.
80-20. 80% I think is nutrition, 20% is...
You could argue that. I would say perhaps some of the most important revealing things are about the time you eat. Don't eat after 5 o'clock.
Not after 5, why?
No,
it affects your sleep.
That's going to be people going, oh, now you're taking away my family time or whatever. So, well, breakfast is good. Have a smaller lunch and, have a snack at night. But your digestive system and your liver don't operate well at night. They're not designed to do that.
And it impacts your sleep too.
Impacts on your sleep, yeah. Because if your heart rate is higher because your blood sugar's higher, because you've been eating late, then that's going to affect your sleep onset. It's going to affect sleep latency in your onset into REM sleep. It's going to affect the amount of deep sleep you have, your sleep cycles and stages. So, yeah, it's really important. I would, I think that research that's relatively recent research confirming that. I think people have sort of thought about, that's just a myth. Well, actually, the research is coming out now saying, eating late is pretty much
not good.
One of the confirmatory factors of type 2 diabetes.
Okay, I'll take that into note. Thank you, Gareth. I've learned so much today. Honestly, I can't have to have another episode. Thank you again.
More than happy to do that. Okay.